right, folks, it just turned 4 o'clock CST, 5 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to wait for Evan to get on. We'll get going. Spurs road trip. We saw what the Spurs looked like without Trey Jones. We saw what they looked like with Trey Jones. Small sample size theater, but we are going to talk a little bit about what we can expect the rest of this trip. And we're going to bring up Joe as well. Joe's going to talk to us a little bit about the road trip, the experiment that was Jeremy Sochan at point guard. And, of course, we're going to get into some draft talk. That's what Evan and I live for. So, Joe, how about you come up first, talk some road trip, hit us with the good stuff, and we'll get this thing rolling.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, Spurs, they looked a lot better with one Trey Jones in the lineup than they do without him. You know, and over the road trip, or, you know, over the last couple of games, I was looking to see what Paul Garcia was actually putting out yesterday, and he had some good points. He had put that over the last couple of games, the Spurs, they scored yesterday, actually, 66 points in the paint, which was a new season high in accuracy from the field as well at 65%, 34 assists for yesterday's game. And this is the seventh time that they've had a 30-plus assist game this season. And now for the not-so-good is the points that the Spurs have scored from beyond the arc. They've only had 27 points from beyond the arc, 31% three-point accuracy. They also had 19 turnovers, and that's basically from yesterday's game. 19 turnovers towards Portland's 25 points. Turned into 25 points for Portland. And now the Spurs, unfortunately, they're 2-4 in crunch time situations, which tells you this is a very young team. And with a very young team comes inexperience. And I think that we're seeing more and more of that when it comes to crunch time situations with this very young Spurs core. We saw that yesterday with Portland, where they had the lead, but they just let it slip away because, again, they start making poor decisions, and when they start getting pressed from the defensive end from Portland, you know, it's hard for them to score. And one of the things that I've seen from the Spurs as well is they're very good when it comes to being in the open court, when it comes to pace. But when you start applying pressure to them and you start taking that away from them, then it becomes a little bit more difficult for them to continue to score. They do share the ball very well, but again, I think there's times where they overshare the ball, and that also is going to become part of their Achilles heel as well. Oversharing the ball and missing opportunities for open threes or a dunk or an easy layup just because you see somebody open in the corner. Again, inexperience. But can we say, what's going on with Jakob, man? Jakob's offensive game this season, it's taken a little bit of an upgrade. You know, he's had an uptick in his offensive production, which I've been really happy to see. And then yesterday's game, he scored a new career high. I think he had, 31 plus points? I mean, you can't say enough good things about one Jakob Portal. And the Spurs got him for cheap, Ben, so we like that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Who doesn't like getting guys on the cheap? Jakob Portal, fantastic game yesterday. And I think I saw this earlier as well. The Spurs had a season high in offensive rebounds. I want to say, I think it was 22 offensive rebounds. That was the second most offensive rebounds in the NBA this season. And I think it was the first time the Spurs have had that many since 2011. I really want to credit the person who tweeted that. Now I can't remember who it was. If you're on here and it was you, props to you. I appreciate that. It was a great stat, great poll. But yeah, Jakob Pearl playing phenomenal. You know, there's definitely going to be some talk about, should the Spurs trade him? Should they, you know, are they going to get 2 first-round picks for him? And are those 2 first-round picks going to be in the next 3 drafts, which is what they really need? So a lot of good things, a couple of bad things, but listen, when it comes to the Spurs this year, root for everything. You want to see the Spurs play well and lose. You want to see them show progress and lose. And if they win, great, even better. let's see if the Spurs can spoil some people's seasons, spoil some people's nights, weeks, whatever. I'm here for it. Evan, what have you been noticing so far in the Spurs' last few games during this road trip?
Oh man, where do you begin? We got to give credit to Coach Pop where it's due when it comes down to these rotations. I wish we can see like more than extensive, 6'5" and up, pretty much like a Sochan or Keldon Johnson or Jay Rich at point guard. Then it's wings galore along with either a center or small ball five. Lineup. We saw a little bit of that last night, but it didn't last more than like a couple of possessions. So when it comes down to the Spurs and their fluidity, their staggering of their rotation, you take out Trey Jones, you're more than likely going to lose. You take out Jakob Poeltl, it's almost a guarantee you're going to lose that game. But as of right now, we're seeing just amazing, just future. I don't want to say like assurance of, oh, these guys are going to be a D guy type of steps, but we needed to see a step from Devin Vassell. We needed to see a step from Keldon Johnson. A lot of people are I don't want to say excited, but really just surprised that, Keldon Johnson, he didn't reportedly say this. He did say it. We can find the film. A couple of nights ago when they played against the Bucks, he hit a couple back-to-back threes, and he yelled, "This is my city." That type of stuff I'm really, excited to hear. And it's just like, with all the Primo stuff, with, this team not being the most exciting team, not having the most backing in terms of national media, in terms of even local media, a lot of people are super, super excited for the Spurs to win. But to Ben's point, to Joe's point, really everybody can pretty much agree to this. If you know what you know, when you're talking about with the Spurs, the off the court moves are what caused the tanking. We are probably going to move on from some of these guys that are on 1-year contracts, or they only have 1 year left on their contract, and they're probably going to go to a contender that's desperate for picks due to an injury. Those injuries have to happen, but right now, Coach Pop is doing a fantastic job of boosting people's trade value and their stock. Jay Rich was through the roof. Jakob Poeltl was through the roof. I know this may hurt a couple guys. People really want Trey Jones and even like Isaiah Roby to stay. But hey, if the price is right, we can get a point guard in return. It doesn't have to be a solid get, but if you want to lose these games in February, March, and after the All-Star break, it's really just comes down to the trade package. So I would love to see Trey Jones be, I don't want to say the point guard of the future, but be the table setter until we get a perennial point guard for the future. Ben, I was super, super, super excited to see Cason Wallace last night, have just another outing. Have him being like a point guard and split 24 and 24 with. We'll talk about the draft later, but Trey Jones isn't necessarily a scrub, isn't necessarily the best starting point guard in the starting point guard option. But until you get one, you would rather have one. And if we can get one in return, whether it's like a Peyton Pritchard, some guy that literally can be a Trey Jones in the future, but for a better price, we're not in any rush for contention. It just comes down to, like I said, the trade package. Sorry, I know that's a long ramble, but yeah, we can definitely see some a lot of options and a lot of even like articles, a lot of attention come to the Spurs due to the impressions of and the overvalue of possibly of some of these guys on our team.
And we could potentially get into some trade talk maybe later if we have the time. But a guy that keeps coming to mind for me is Gilgeous Alexander. At some point, he's going to be tired of losing in OKC. OKC has a ton of assets they can give up. Do the Spurs go after him and give OKC somebody? The problem is I don't know what OKC really needs right now. They're just a weird team. But let's transition a bit here to Jeremy Sochan, the one game that Trey Jones missed, Sochan was playing point. That was a particularly ugly game. You know, you can't really blame that entire game on Sochan playing point guard. There's a lot of other issues going on, but what Evan, Joe, whoever, what did you guys notice about Sochan playing the point? Did it mess with other guys' rhythms? Is there a chemistry thing that needs to happen there, or was it just Trey Jones is our point guard? We really want him to play point. We don't dislike Jeremy Sochan, but at the same time, he's not our point guard. What?
Yeah, the one thing that I noticed about Jeremy Sohan is, I mean, point guard isn't his position. He's better suited to where Coach Pop is currently having him, in the starting lineup. The one thing that I do like about Jeremy Sohan is his ability to play defense. That's why he's out there on the court. And if you can get a couple of points out of the kid on any given night, that's just a plus. But he's not out there for his offensive prowess. He's never been an offensive weapon, even going back to when he played with Baylor. So you like the advent of him being a, defensive presence out there on the court for the San Antonio Spurs. One thing in particular that stood out at me was his ability to stick with Damian Lillard yesterday. And he did get in foul trouble because he made some mistakes here and there. But overall, for a rookie, he's been very impressive on the defensive end. I would like to see him work a little bit more on a mid-range jumper, or even, go ahead and start working on a three-pointer, his three-point shot, and being able to knock down the three with more accuracy. But overall, just from what I'm seeing from him in his rookie season, he shows a lot of potential, especially from the defensive aspect of things. I mean, I think he instantly makes the team a little bit better when it comes to defense. But we're currently right now, when you look at where the Spurs rank in the NBA, they're just a middle of the road team when it comes to defense. And I think we're kind of seeing that on any given night. Same thing goes with their offense. They're not really where they need to be. They're still kind of middle of the road. They're still inconsistent, I think, from any given night. But again, comes with inconsistency from them being a little bit inexperienced because they're young. Hopefully they can rectify some of these issues. But overall, I like everything that I'm seeing out of this young Spurs core. But one thing in particular that we haven't really touched base on is Devin Vassell and what he means to this Spurs team and the advent of his game. He's been very impressive to start the season along with Keldon. So I'll return it to you.
Yeah, man, with Jeremy Sohan, he's definitely not a he's definitely not a point guard. That's for sure. He's at most a point forward that can push the ball in transition. But like we were alluding to earlier, Coach Pop he's not just testing Jeremy Sohan. He's literally really just seeing how willing what he needs to do to not just assure have a good balance to not just offense and defense in terms of what's the word I was looking for, to balance the team, get it going in terms of playmaking in the offense, initiating any type of play set. Realistically, it's just like I said, it is a test. I was trying to say it's not a test, but it really is a test. I hate to say Coach Pop test players, but yeah, I'm pretty much giving in. I like to think that when you think of Jeremy Sohan, he makes the right decisions. He's not pretty much putting pressure on anybody else, and he's the glue guy to this team. Right now, you can see that he's having fun. Right now, he's pretty much having no pressure in terms of not giving up his three-point shot. A lot of people, were talking the past few days, oh, he shouldn't even shoot. He shouldn't even, give in. He should really just pass it up. His playmaking, his decision-making, his, just getting ready for the NBA speed is going to take, honestly, probably not even this season, probably next season and the season after to really get into his game. Joe, you're alluding to his mid-range game, so his three-point percentage. I'm really driving. I was trying to find the stats. That's why I was trying to see what I was going to say there for a second. But when you think about it, he's only taken about 3 or 4 movement shots that aren't layups. and only made one. That's what I could find. And that was the game that we saw in person in Minnesota, the little baby mid-range, little fadeaway in the paint. And that was money. Anything else, that's really not his game. Mid-range pick and pop, dribble handoffs. We kind of seen dribble handoffs turn into dribble drives, but not dribble handoffs, pick and range, or pick and pop like Devin Vassell. That's his game. You got to have touch for that. That's the one thing. That's the one thing Jeremy Sochan does not have is touch. So
he actually moves really good without the ball as well.
Definitely a great cutter. Somebody you can rely on. Honestly, like I said, to make the right decision. Like you have somebody that is 6'8", 6'9", 19 years old, guarding one night Steph Curry, one night Damian Lillard, and then blocking a 7-1 center at the rim, not being afraid just to, I want to say, get a highlight dunk on, but literally and not being afraid of the moment. These are the type of things that, I can't even really, I'm going to say rely on a guy like Isaiah Roby on, but there's plenty of NBA players that aren't afraid to dive on the floor. The DeJounte Murray, Fred Van Fleet, pick around steal, the one where they're driving from, they're trying to block from one hand or trying to shield their body with one arm and dribble with the one hand, and then they can wrap around with the other without getting a foul. I want you guys to think about how hard that is to obtain and to get in your bag and to do on a night-to-night basis. Only Sochan, Trey Jones, I can't think of anybody else can do that. So, yeah, that's something I want to really highlight. Matt has joined us for the first time. Appreciate you. Matt is another member of Project Spurs. Definitely appreciate you for joining us. What you think about last night's game? Jeremy Sochan, anything you wanted to possibly change routes?
Yeah, I thought that Jeremy Sochan did a really good job last night. I think that he did a good job in San Francisco. I thought that he is a big reason why Steph Curry was under 20 points. I think he's doing good. I don't know that point guard is where he needs to be, but I think that he's definitely capable of guarding the other team's point guard or whoever their best shooter is. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that, and I hope to see more of it.
Absolutely, that's one of Sochan's biggest strengths. I would say is he's very versatile in who he can guard. He can guard really almost 1 through 5. I mean, that was on display, like was previously mentioned. Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, making shots difficult for them, making life in general difficult for them. So I think we're all in agreement here. Jeremy Sochan, pretty good ball player, needs another year, and that's fine. That's to be expected. That's where we want him. We're gonna get to some draft talk here. I think we finally have the college basketball season upon us. We've had a few games to get a look at some guys. For those of you who are college basketball fans or who want something to watch that isn't the NBA and is on every night, college basketball, great opportunity. Huge game tonight, actually, Gonzaga, Texas. Going to have an opportunity to see a couple of potential lottery picks, draft picks. Dylan Mitchell out of Texas, Tyrese Hunter out of Texas has been moving up board, 6-foot point guard. But Evan mentioned him earlier. Out of Kentucky, Cason Wallace. He has had a really nice start to his season, and against good competition last night in Michigan State, he really showed out. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I do know he had seven recorded steals, which is a ridiculous number. Played very well. Great defender. He's about 6'4", probably in the 200-pound range, I would say. But the kid looks real. He looks legit. I know Evan's kind of excited about him, so I'm going to let Evan go off here and say something, and then I think we're going to get to Tavarius, who I'm sure has a question.
Yeah, no. When I was talking about Cason Wallace earlier, I was really much highlighting that if the Spurs No, they find themselves. I know this is really just tough to even spit out. If they find themselves with the 8th or 9th, possibly 10th pick, even later in the lottery, who knows? It's not something to panic on too much when we think about the amount of point guards that are honestly NBA ready and possibly rotation ready that you can just throw into the Spurs system. Great defenders, great all-around players, and when you think about that, I'm not talking about Nick Smith. I'm not talking about Monte George. I'm not talking about any other guard. I'm talking about Cason Wallace, like Texas kid from the Richardson, Texas area, was really battling out for a good couple of years with Anthony Black. It's good to see them, possibly having maybe 3 to 4 matchups this year. Possibly really just kind of, having a competition to see who may be the first point guard after Scoot being taken. Total 2 different games, but Cason Wallace, I really wasn't that high on him over Anthony, over some other point guards. But when you think about it, just the patience you have to have, and Coach Calipari's offense, he doesn't literally, like I just said, Ben. The Fred VanVleet, the DeJounte Murray pick around, steal. He did that 3-4 times last night. Literally, and it was clean and easy layup on the other end. Total momentum killer for the team. Total just a buzzing, just all around playmaking, just all around guard. I can't really compare him to anybody else besides not more of a pass first Lonzo Ball, but all around guard with a shot. Like, if you can find somebody that's just like a table setter like Trey Jones, realistically, that's better as a better, more pesky defender. Like, that's who he is. So I can definitely see him being, I don't want to say a top 10 lock, but a top 10 possible talent. So Tavarius, I appreciate your patience. If you had any questions about the draft or about the Spurs, anything that has to do with the team, feel free.
Yeah, Evan, you said we're going 8th or 9th pick. You think we're going to be that good? We pick at the 8th or 9th?
Possibly. So if no team offers multiple firsts for Jakob or a good first and a good second, I can't see them moving on from him. He's on 1 year left on his deal. We could possibly bring him back for 15, 16 million. That's a great value, and that's the value that he deserves. Pretty much the Miles Turner, Jonas Valanciunas type of money. That's pretty much you stamp him for that, and that's you lock him for 3-4 years. And then honestly, the trade talks don't stop from there. They don't stop. They can even be ignited because that's a great price as long as he's right there. Same thing with Trey Jones. As long as you keep him, we're not terrible. The second unit, the 8th and 9th guys on the bench, the Jay Riches, the Doug McDermotts, they'll be replaced with teenagers. That's when we'll start losing games, So if we trade them, that's when, we'll start maybe evening out and possibly being around 35, 32, 33 wins. But, the lottery has been kind of, in terms of the lottery odds, man, like the Hornets are terrible. The Rockets suck, the Pistons suck, and it's just like, we're only the next team out. We have to play. So
well, let me ask you this question: could you see anybody passing they skip over Scoot?
Say that one more time.
Do you see any team drafting somebody else at number 2 besides Scoot?
Oh no, hell no, absolutely not. No.
So the Pistons got too many guards. What about Orlando?
So Orlando can easily walk away from. I saw your tweet, and I thought we talked about this, man. I thought we came to a conclusion. Here's the thing: the Markel Fultzes of the world, the Killian Hayes of the world, these guys that are definite bench pieces, not perennial starters, not guys that you can pay upwards of 18, 19 million. Like, you. Bye. Sayonara. Come on, Scoot. Welcome to town. You don't pass on that type of talent. Scoot is a wing, like a Paul George, electrifying Paul George with a quicker first step and a point guard's body that can shoot. Then they're 50% from mid-range. We're worried about his three-point shot. We're worried about that. That's even growing. We'll worry about that. We'll develop that years down the line. But you just don't pass on that. And in terms of the Pistons lineup, listen, man, promise you, Scoot, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, that is the new NBA. There's no more LeBron stoppers. There's no more DeMar Carrolls. Those guys don't even get a job with the Spurs. Sayonara, bye. Sorry. 10 million, 12 million, 13 million. Sign it. Deliver, gone. You're in Bora Bora. We need RJ Barretts. We need Lonnie Walker type of guards that can turn into Lonnie Walker type of what we wanted them to be, basically, long story short. The 6'7", 6'8", put the ball on the floor, 3-level scorers. Like, Malachi Branham could be a shooting guard or a small forward. He's 6'5". That's what we got him. We don't need a 6'8", 6'9", Kyle Kuzma at the 3. That's nice for a secondary lineup when we want some fluidity, we want to have fun, but it's not a guarantee. So if, if the Spurs are in a position to get that, we can move Trey to the second lineup, the second unit, because Scoot is a definite day one starter. That's how good he is, man. He's that good. So no team is going to pass on him or Wemby top 2 unless some crazy injury, unless these guys talk out of their position. Like how Jaden Ivey was just like, I don't want to be a king. Unless how, we hear that a lot. We see that a lot. Banchero didn't want to go to Orlando, but he's doing just fine right now. So, yeah, he's getting paid just to shut up. So, yeah, we're good. Everything is fine. Everything's kosher in terms of the Spurs. But, yeah, if we're 8 or 9, man, we're going to get some absolute stud for sure. Ben, take the mic from me, please.
This draft is considerably deeper than last year's. If a lot of those same guys from last year's draft were to enter this draft, Paolo Banchero probably doesn't. Well, he definitely doesn't go number 1. He might go number 3 or 4, and Chet Holmgren probably falls down the draft board, as does Jabari Smith. That's how good this draft is. I mean, there's great players to be had all throughout the lottery. It's just going to be a matter of how the team's picks fall. Like Evan was saying, if the Spurs end up somehow picking outside of the top 3, they have to make decisions now on who to get. There's plenty of guys who basically meet Evan's standards here at 6'7", 6'8", and can do things from 3 levels of scoring and play defense. There's and Anthony Black is a 6'7" point guard, but you can move him out to the wing if you need to. You're going to have to work on his shot too. So it really depends on what you're valuing in the draft. If you need a guard who's a shooter, Cason Wallace is a great guy to have, assuming you can't get your hands on Scoot Henderson. And to answer the question about the Magic have no idea what they need because they have a bunch of long boys and they have too many guards who are not NBA level starting guards. They've got Cole Anthony who can't stay healthy. Jalen Suggs is inconsistent.
And he's a shooting guard.
Right, and Markelle Fultz hasn't been healthy in forever. I mean, that man was ready for a breakout season, and then he broke his big toe. I mean, the dude cannot stay healthy. That's just his reality at this point, which is unfortunate. But Orlando has no idea what it's doing, and I would imagine they're going to go for a best player available approach.
And one thing I want to highlight when you think about prospects, when you think about how not just scouts, but I don't want to say just draft Twitter, evaluate them, it's going to be honestly, me and Ben's job to push, certain agendas to really solidify, hey, what hole and how big is it for someone's game to evaluate them. So let me go on. When it comes down to Paolo Banchero, the only hole he really had in his game was his defense, and that's honestly on an effort standpoint. He went to Duke. He had a lot of issues with his body weight in terms of hydration, in terms of staying in the game, staying motivated. And, we see on NBA level, he's able to draw fouls. He's able to be patient. He's able to get to his spots, not when he wants, but he's able to elude. And honestly, they have a good two-way game with him and Franz Wagner, and that's really exciting to see for the future. So it's really been point Banchero at times, like how it's been point Sochan. And they've had moments where it looks great, and they don't win a lot of games on purpose. So if they get Wemby or Scoop, goodness gracious, that is some good TV right there. But in terms of this draft class, it's super important. Uh, like I said, me and Ben will be the guys to really solidify saying, hey, Anthony Black, he really only needs to work on his mid-range game. And he honestly is very good at hiding that because he doesn't take many mid-range shots. It's only been a couple games, but it's kind of been pretty obvious. He'll take a floater from beyond the free throw line sometimes. It's just like, goodness gracious, kid, like, what are you doing? So, stuff like that. Nick Smith, guys that realistically are perennial top 5 guys. We're pretty much testing that and seeing why are you that? We've seen guys obviously and from Caleb Houston last year to Brandon Boston the year before, really being, we're top 5, and then it's just, So, Ben, I got to give it to you. Khalil Ware definitely showing, he's top 10, probably the second center off the board. I was super high on Derek Lively, and that may be a competition from battling on for decades. For decades in terms of them. That they'll be in the league for sure for a long time.
And with Derek Lively, he's still trying to come back from an injury to his leg, I believe it was. So he's not looking quite as bouncy as he could be, but has shown a little bit in what he's able to do in the 2 games he's played for Duke. But yeah, Khalil Ware, man, Oregon's going to be a really weird team. They might be a pretty bad team, but Ware is going to put up numbers. So I'm curious to see how that works for him. As far as the big men go, but we still have quite a few guys who have not played games yet. Like Nick Smith has not played yet because of an injury. Dariq Whitehead has not played yet because of an injury. Cam Whitmore hasn't played yet because of an injury. Leonard Miller's playing in the G League, but you have a couple of G League guys who are doing other stuff, and then Baba Miller was suspended by the NCAA for basically half a season, which is infuriating because that's a guy you really wanted to see what he can do, especially at Florida State, where they know how to use all these dudes who are super long and lanky and kind of play multiple positions. So there's still a lot to be seen in the next few weeks, especially with like Thanksgiving tournaments coming up and some big non-conference games later in November and some December. So we're going to have to wait a little bit, but there's definitely some interesting subplots working themselves out. I happen to really like Keontae George, if you're talking about guards, kind of a 6'4", 6'5" guy who's 200 pounds, 205 maybe, and like he just plays really well. He plays really hard, great defender, has been shooting the ball fairly well, distributes the ball really well for a guy who's basically playing off ball. I mean, it's awesome. He's been really fun to watch. If you get a chance to watch Baylor, it's a local, for the most part, a local Texas team. You don't have to worry about staying up late watching a Pac-12 game at 11 o'clock at night. So, good opportunity. And Dylan Mitchell at Texas too, for that matter. I know there's plenty of Texas fans. So, a lot of good opportunities to watch some potential draft picks for us, for the Spurs.
I was going to say, this is a recorded space. This is something that I want to stamp. That is a guarantee. Ben, you ready? It's not crazy, but this is a guarantee. You ready? You should be able to agree with me. Ready? If the Spurs, if the Spurs do not pick in the top 2, if they do not get Scoot or Wemby, stamp it. Guarantee. Like how Chuck says, the Spurs will grab a guard that is either born from Texas, either Cason Wallace or Anthony Black. They play in Kentucky or Arkansas. They're from Dallas. Or they will draft a guard that plays in a school from Texas, either Keontae George, Tyrese Hunter, Dylan Mitchell. That is a guarantee, don't you think?
I mean, if you're the Spurs, you can't just draft a guy because he's from Texas.
No. Like just in terms of where they'll be picking from. Like they'll pick from like 5 or 6, or possibly in the 9 and 10 range. Those guys will be there, and I don't, the Thompson twins, they'll be there too. But I'm just saying those
I get the feeling. I would get the feeling that the Spurs are going to be a little hesitant around the Thompson twins, just because it's hard to evaluate the competition that Overtime Elite plays against.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely better than high school, but it's probably not as good as college. So
Oh no,
yeah,
without a doubt.
you're somewhere in no man's land when it comes to evaluating them. It makes it very difficult. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to watch them both play live. Looked very good. Still couldn't hit a three though. Between the two of them, they went 0-7. Um,
Yikes.
but it was one went 0-2, the other 0-5. But um, yeah, the shots just still not there. Despite, and I know they work on it a lot. I interviewed him afterwards, and they said, yeah, we can't really worry about the shooting. We just got to keep working on it, and we're that's one thing we're focusing really hard on. And it's like I really want to see that become consistent and then hit shots more often than not.
And that is what a hole in their game, both of them. Asar, realistically, he has touch, but he knows he can't get to his spot and stop and have a more consistent pull-up jumper, not just from mid-range, but from three. He's that silky guard that'll just try and dance on you, use his length, and get to a spot and maybe throw up a pretty floater. And Amin, realistically, when you think of him, he's the point guard that has the mindset of, I got to get the fancy pass. And if I don't get the fancy pass, I might just try and flush on you or throw this floater to heaven. So, realistically, yeah, that's oof. And transition, they don't stop and pop from three. They're going to attack that rim. They're trying to be fancy with those passes and those moves, those and one moves they can get away with, not in the college setting. So, yeah, you are exactly right. It's going to take a while I don't want to say a while, but it'll be interesting to see how long it would take for them to adjust to the NBA speed and to the Spurs game. Like that type of offense. They play a Rockets level type of basketball. Everyone, Kevin O'Connor, all these reporters are literally just roasting the Rockets on the type of basketball they play, and that's literally high school AAU type of basketball which they're playing. So that's a great point, Ben. I got to give it to you.
It's a lot of gunning. And the Thompson twins, for the most part, they know they're the two better players on their team, and I will say this, like the first half of their game that I watched, they struggled at times. They really got it together at halftime, and they clamped down. I think it was Amin had 4 turnovers at halftime. He only had 1 turnover in the second half. Asar didn't have any turnovers for the course of the game. And they turned it up on defense, and that's how they ended up winning the game and running away with it. They got stops. They decided that guys are just not going to score on me. I'm going to ignore the poor officiating, which it was pretty bad. I mean, they let dudes put hands on the ball handler a lot, but it was night and day between those first 2 halves, and like that second half is kind of the stuff where you can see it forming, and it's okay. These 2 guys can clearly play. They clearly know what they're doing. They just have to put the shooting together. I mean, the defender was literally stepping 5 or 6 feet off of them at the 3-point line because he figured if I try and go up and guard them, he's blowing by me. But if I make him shoot, it might as well be a turnover at times. So that's a really big hole in their game in a league where you have to make shots to stay on the floor if you are not going to be a big man defensive specialist. And even then, a lot of those guys are coming up with different ways to score. I mean, Jakob Pertl has his little pop shot. He's a great facilitator. So there's other ways to affect the game, but at 6'7" and about 200 pounds for both of them, you got to be able to shoot, and you got to be able to make people respect that shot.
And one thing the Spurs will do, they will teach you a solid float game. The Jakob Pertl floater, that's money. Almost every single time, even that little flash of a mid-range shot in the preseason. Don't sleep. You got away with it. Coach Pop may have been like, no, but he got away with it. It was super ugly with one hand, but yeah, I'm super excited not only for this draft but for this team in terms of development, in terms of them just being together. It's been a rough patch for the past few weeks, and in all honesty, even on that losing streak, even last night, it's been, for the most part on the court, it's been fun to watch. We know this team isn't going to be contending. We know this team isn't um, isn't doing anything besides evaluating and trying to determine who can fulfill what role. But this process, like I said, it's been fun, and I'm just enjoying the whole endure. So, Ben, I know how long you want to stick around. I know if we have a last minute curtain call for any questions.
If anybody's got questions, feel free to request. We're happy to have you guys up here. We are always happy to answer any questions, take comments. That's what we're here for. But if not, I don't have much else. We don't have a whole lot to talk about. Again, I'm going to plug the Gonzaga Texas game just because I figured a lot of people here are from Texas. They might want to watch that team. Dylan Mitchell, a guy you should be watching. He's potentially a lottery pick. Tyrese Hunter, potential first rounder as well. And we've got Sergio up here. Good sir, what do you have for us?
Just a quick question. So recently, I've been seeing a lot of Jakob just balling this year. Like the man he dropped 31 yesterday, right? I guess my question is, should we trade Jakob in order to get potentially 2 first rounders from this guy?
Yes. Yes. No question about it. Ben, go ahead.
I'm not quite as all in on that trade potential there. If you have to, I think if you're the Spurs, you have to get 2 first rounders, but you also have to get something in return that will help you with the sting of losing a great defensive center like that. That's not to say that you have to go out and demand to get an all-star. That's just not going to happen. But you have to get a big who can stay on the floor, who's going to protect the rim for you. And, it's hard to ask for a Jakob Poeltl clone. Oh, trade Jakob Poeltl, get 2 picks for him, and get, a Jakob Poeltl light in return. That would be kind of nuts and also a huge steal. But I think if you can basically get 2 first rounders out of him, and maybe you got to give up another player to get another player back who can replace him at center, that would be ideal. Because otherwise, you're trotting out there Gorgie Jang potentially as your starting center, or Keita Bates Diop, or someone outside of Jang. All of your other options are really undersized at center, which is a concern.
What about Charles?
Oh, you're right.
6'9".
He's 6'9", 6'10". I do like Charles Bassey, though. That would give him opportunity for more minutes. He's played really well in his limited minutes. I have to give him credit for that. He's been great. But I think for the most part, you're really still undersized outside of Jang. And you just have to get someone who's a 7-footer in return. I mean, we're not even or 6'11", whatever it is, but not even like a great 7-footer. Just someone who can hold it down for now. Because if you're trading Jakob Poeltl, you're assuming you're taking on a lot of L's this year, and you are trying to get to the bottom of the league. You are trying to get to those bottom 3 spots. And if you can do that, you have a chance at Wembanyama. And with all of the other assets that they've accumulated, and assuming they make that trade and get 2 more first rounders, they could potentially trade up to number 1 if they fall out of the top 3 or something, and guarantee themselves Wembanyama and say, we're drafting this guy, we're going to make you a Godfather deal, and if you don't take it, we're going to leak it so that you look stupid for not taking this deal. I mean, it's going to be something crazy like what the Magic did to get rid of Chris Webber. Yeah. They eventually picked Penny Hardaway. I mean, that's the kind of crazy Godfather deal we're talking about, which you can't make that deal anymore because they made the rule that you can't trade picks in back-to-back years that are your own. So that was a really crazy trade that will never happen again.
And Evan, I know you said that this is a loaded draft class, but man, like, bro, if we just get Wemby, bro, like Wemby, Devin, and Keldon, like, bro, that's like the dream right there.
For sure. Yeah, without a doubt. But in terms of the 29 other teams, possibly, Yeah, possibly a good half of them. So we're talking 14 teams being all in on Wemby. That makes Jakob Poeltl's trade value in terms of desperation talks, in terms of having him for a first round pick, like Ben was saying, a stud in terms of the 7-footer, solid 7-footer that we do not have. It's going to be impossible. It's going to be unlikely. It's going to be very, 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 very hard, and I'll be shocked if that happens. But the good side is the good thing is a lot of teams out west are kind of finding their rhythm. Teams like even the Kings, teams like obviously the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Jazz are kind of surprising a lot of people, or surprising everybody. So, the Spurs will probably find themselves in the play-in 10, 11 seed race just by default, kind of because everyone else is kind of trash like the Rockets. But, the top 10 is a guaranteed starter, in my opinion, level of prospect in terms of that tier of guys. Top 15 is a guaranteed stud. First round guys will in this year's or last year's draft will push Christian Brown, Kendall Brown, a lot of guys out the first round in terms of making them not guaranteed contract type of guys, possibly two-way type of guys. And when you have that in terms of a lot of people at your position, in terms of a lot of people valuing your talent, in terms of GMs, in terms of agent talk, in terms of manager talk after March Madness, it's getting real. Who's my team? Where am I going? Listen, I will tell you right now, the Spurs are going to be all in on probably a stamp of guys, and they're not going to keep their eyes on anybody else. If they can lock in on a couple studs like how they did Sochan, they're probably locked in all on Easton and Duren, on Ousmane Dieng. Me and Ben and even Austin were talking about how they were kind of hiding, who they were working at times. So Shaedon Sharp's big mouth, kind of let it out. So, we're going to be all in on trying to, move this team up and, and elevate this team. And if it's not Wemby, it's nothing to be too sad about. Obviously, it'll be, kind of a
agree.
It'll be kind of a rough bandage to rip off, seeing him flourish on another team, possibly in our division, OKC, New Orleans with that Lakers pick. Oof. So yeah, but we'll see, man. I'm not too banked on Wembanyama being a number one or being a Spur. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
OKC don't need another big man. They have Shet, bro. Let us win for once.
Me and Ben way more than Chet. So he's not he's a power forward. He's a stretch forward. He's a 7-1 power forward. He's probably gonna play a lot of 3-and-1 Evan Mobley, top of the key, trying to press up on guys. He can get pushed and probably have another. I'm not gonna talk about that. Let me stop. But let me reiterate.
Strong feelings about Chet Holmgren in this chat.
I love Chet Holmgren. He's already back from I can't say back from the injury, but he's out the boot. Obviously ahead of schedule, so we'll see what he looks like probably next season. But in terms of guys that are solid, like Ben, we can just talk about for 10 seconds here. The Cam Whitmores of the world, the Derek Lively's of the world, the NBA bodies that the lottery can have, that we can possibly move up on if we can get some of these Jay Riches off the team, and we can possibly get 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks. That would be Lord's work, like how we did last year, and how we got all the steals. So I'm excited. I'm not too down on the Spurs winning games, but every loss is just hey, let's go. Hey,
well, the biggest thing they need is for the Charlotte Hornets to get their act together and win some games. I'm serious, because if the Spurs get the Hornets pick, if they are not in, if they are in the playoffs, they have to be outside of the lottery for the Spurs to get that pick.
LaMelo Ball is back. He's not looking too happy. He's just walking around there, flopping his hands, and just playing street ball. So, the Charlotte Robcats, they're just out there with the vibes. So, but in terms of, let me talk about. Ben, 1 second. Have you seen the Charlotte Swarm play? No, seriously, Mark Williams is a god. Bryce McGowan is a god in the G League. Oh my goodness.
Mark Williams is great. I liked him coming out of Duke.
And he's showing some mid-range flashes, showing, hey, he knocked down that buzzer beater off the glass. A lot of luck, a lot no skill. So, hey, I'm I'm on board if we can even move Jakob for a couple of those guys. No Kai Jones, guys. Kai Jones is a power forward that doesn't want to play center. That thinks he's a small forward. That's Kai Jones. No, I'm good on that. So, we can get all that from KBD, all those vibes from that. So, no more Kai Jones talk, please.
Yeah, no more trades for him.
Evan, he's the truth.
No, he's not. He's just from Texas, and he has cool hair, and he can dunk. We missed the dunks, but now we got a lot of Jeremy Sochan alley oops, so we'll be straight. So yeah, I think we're good.
Let's be honest. If the Spurs are going to trade for anybody, it's going to be Jericho Sims.
Stop.
I couldn't resist.
No, hey, that was last night. He had some first quarter opportunities with that on slam, so I was good. That was cool. It was good to see him. But Thibs in that lineup, man.
Yeah,
who knows?
Knicks are troublesome. I think that's what we've got for today, folks. Evan and I are gonna call it a spaces, if you will. Again, this is recorded. You can come back and listen anytime you want. That way, you know exactly what we said. We have Evan on record. What was it that you said, Evan? You wanted it on record.
I'm gonna have a list for the next space, but on record, if they play at the University of Baylor or Texas, and they are a guard, and they are available in the first round, / Anthony Blacks and Cason Wallace, who are from the Dallas area, the Spurs are keeping all their big Texas guards. Yeah, they're getting all the Texas guards. One of them. Let me make that clear. It's just something I have a gut feeling on. Trey Jones can be the ice on the cake, and he'll be the sixth man, just for them to be the perennial possible starter for the future. Keontae is not a point guard; he's more of a cross-tween hybrid guard, but he has that body, he has that 205, that strength, them boulder shoulders. Get out the way, Eurostep, Keldon Johnson, mentor me, please. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll see how that turns out. They'll be playing against UT in a couple of weeks. I wish I could go to that Gonzaga game today, but I'm planned, so we'll see. We'll get that report next week. So,
You think Texas beats Gonzaga today?
Possibly. They're actually a favorite to win. Gonzaga just has that seniority. They have, Drew Timmy's probably going to go off. Texas has no interior defenders. It's just a bunch of guys that barely made varsity, probably.
Bro, if Texas can just shoot the three, bro, I think we'll be okay.
That they can do. We didn't talk about Inferio Morris. I think that's how you say his name. He's probably
I think it's Arterio.
Arterio, yeah. The lime green Kobe's, Kobe 5s, the Grinches. Yeah, you can't miss him. Can't forget him. He's literally going to be, a second-round lock for sure, but maybe a first-round guy. So Texas, hey, look at Texas getting 3 first-round guys, potentially with him and Tyrese and Dylan Mitchell. So we'll see. But yeah, they can shoot it lights out. I went to the game against Arkansas a few weeks ago. Lights out. They didn't have a chance. Anthony Black, obsolete. It was just the Jordan Wall show, desperation mode. So yeah, we'll see.
All right, that's going to take us to the end, folks. Again, recorded space. You can go back and watch anytime you like. And for Evan and I and Project Spurs, we are out. Appreciate you guys listening, and we will surely be back next week.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good one. Take care.